Pi'ilani would extract 200,000 gallons of water per day, bottle that, and then send that off island. That does not make any sense to me. Why would we privatize a public resource and take it away from our own people on our own island for the benefit of a few people? Why would we do that?
It's disrespectful. There hasn't been adequate review. The state uses a water plan and rules that treat water as though it's on a map, when actually recently they've discovered the hydrology of our island is three-dimensional. And they're just learning about this. The data is not all written up. But why should we allow a foreign national to come in and bottle 2,000-year-old water, boutique it, put on their spiritual Mauna Kea water, ship it to Taiwan? If they make 25 cents per gallon profit, they'll make 18 million in a year. They'll make 1.5 per month. Why wouldn't the county of Hawaii take advantage of something like this?
We cannot get this one wrong, folks. Please, just hold off, wait to see what the Water Commission has to say before you decide on this issue, please.
I sent you this map, and it's the zoning map. Here is the parcel. I disagree with the background report, which claims it's next to industrial zoning. The closest industrial zoning is 5 blocks away up here. So we're talking about spot zoning here.
The landowner is, as I mentioned earlier, Suisun, and Pi'ilani Partners is the applicant. Pi'ilani Partners has the ability, has the option to purchase the property if the SMA permit for a well drilling and a bottling facility is approved. You know, it's maintained that the general plan was designated industrial in 1991. There was a general plan update in 2005, and that area still remained. You know, I would kind of request that this body look at the reasons for granting a time extension for zoning change, and don't be confused by the current pending SMA application that's before the Planning Commission, because there are separate issues. Sure, there are some overlap, but as I mentioned earlier, if the SMA permit goes down, the landowner, Suisun, still wants the opportunity to be able to have other uses other than a bottling plant.
This bill is tied to that project because as I read through the bill, the conditions within it are directed towards that proposal. And so I don't know, it's a kind of a cart before the horse problem, but I realize they're up against a deadline for a time extension too. So I guess that is your issue and why you're here today, when it seems a little bit premature for me to be looking at a time extension for a project that is maybe not even the project proposed, or will in the future not be the proposed project.
You know, like historically, the notion of contract zoning has been dismissed by the courts as being like illegal. Contract zoning is that if you have this array of uses, and then when you approve a zone change, whether it's like for ML or single family residential or commercial, and then you cherry pick the kind of uses that would be allowed within that ordinance. And the courts historically have said that, you know, that's illegal because you're denying that person of whatever rights that zoning confers.
And so the planning department looks favorably on allowing this time extension because whether it's a water bottling facility or some other type of industrial use, the opinion of the department was that industrial zoning with all of its potential uses is still appropriate for this parcel.
Correct. It still continues to be consistent with the general plan, with the zoning for the property, as well as the original reasons for approval of the zoning.
But in this case here, it started in September, and there were like continued hearings, and the last hearing occurred on February the 7th. And at that time, the chair had closed public hearing, and based on the commission's rules on relating to SMA, a decision has to be rendered within 60 days after the close of the public hearing. And failing that, then the request would be automatically denied. The commission, my understanding, the commission's reasons for deferring action, and perhaps they weren't necessarily aware of the time constraints then, but was to, the commission's reasoning for deferring action was to enable the State Commission on Water Resource Management to complete its public hearing process and an update on the I guess like a statewide water master plan. And that timeline, for all intents and purposes, is kind of like saying the general plan update when it's going to be done. I mean, like it's kind of like, and it's an evolving process.
Right.
So if the commission does not render a decision by April 7th, I doubt very much, in my opinion, that the State Commission on Water Resource, will come up with the plan by then.
Suisan hasn't tried to develop this property in how many years? Now there's all this controversy with Piilani Partners. Now there's all these people out there saying, please don't do this, please don't allow this to happen. And now there's a new avenue. And so I understand the fundamental ideas about protecting Suisan's rights as a landowner. I just don't agree with, and in my job, mind you, this isn't in my district, but it is in the county. And so listening to the overall constituents, the answer is, for me, will be no, because I see that if I vote yes, then essentially I'll be disempowered to have a vote in future and what happens here. And to me, I just see this as kind of a game and a play to get where they want to get to in the long run. And I may not have all the exact terminology correctly, but I just see it overall from a broader perspective, like, wait a minute, this game has been played how many times? In how many industries, on how many different pieces of property, and we end up getting to where we didn't want to get to, and then wondering how we got there. And so I guess I see this opportunity to recognize the wisdom in not divorcing these issues, and to recognize their connection, and to recognize the concerns of the people.
There's been some talk about the changing character of that area. I've lived there since 1970. This rezoning was done in 1992, 22 years after I had moved there. And I'll tell you, if the complexion of that area has changed, it has changed to become more commercial, not to become more open. The whole Manono area is slowly becoming a commercial corridor. Since I moved there in 1970, you have the Freddy's, Manono Mini Mart. You have the 500 Manono, which is right next door. You have a rezoning of an architectural company across the street, and you have a bigger development which has all of those, the Island Style Cafe, Takenoko, and Tokunaga. That whole corridor is becoming commercial, plain and simple. The only open space is, yes, the area that we're talking about. But the people who live in there are all squatters, and we're trying to drive them out of that area. So, I hope all of you who don't live in that area would at least try to please, try to understand where I'm coming from.
I think a lot of good questions have come before us. Is this zone industrial appropriate for the area? I personally don't want to see a zone situation in limbo, because it will prohibit the landowner or the potential new landowner from doing anything. And there are a lot of allowable uses that Ms. Leloy pointed out to us earlier. And the fact that light industrial zone land is very minimal in Hilo, so we want to make sure that we have that as part of our inventory.
Ms. Leloy. Ms. Poindexter.
No.
Mr. Richards.
Aye.
Ms. Villegas.
Nope.
Chair Kirkovich.
Aye.
Chair Kirkovich, you have 7 votes in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Shall we take a 5-minute recess, and then we will get back to the rest of the order of the day for planning? Thank you.